I must confess that I don't yet have my recent trip to Italy out of my system, so this recipe, tomato and sausage soup, is also inspired by Italy. What I have here is 8 ounces of Italian sausage. You can use either sweet or spicy. You can use regular or turkey, depending on how much fat you are allowing in your diet and at this particular meal or during the rest of the day or what the rest of your day looks like. What I want to do with these is simply brown them up. So I'm going to start breaking them up. I did remove the casings before I put them in here. You can also find Italian sausage in a mild form that doesn't have casings, that comes in bulk. Sometimes you can find the sweet or spicy versions that way as well. So work with what you have. But our goal here is to get sausage without casings browned and broken apart into chunks. And so we'll get that started. You can see that we've got most of the sausage browned up. There's a little bit that's got a tad of pink, and I'm not really worried about it like I would be with some other things. It does need to cook up to the appropriate endpoint temperature of 160, but for what we're going to do today, it's going to get a lot more cooking. So what I want to do next is get as much of that fat out, the extra fat. I want to keep those great brown bits, and I don't want to have to drain everything out of the pan. So I'm using a pair of tongs and a paper towel. And we should be able to get most of the fat out of there just by stirring the paper towel around. There we go. The next stage here, we're going to add half a cup of yellow onion and one and a half, 2 small cloves of garlic to this that you've minced up. I'm just going to let these stir up a little bit, let them start to get softening so that we can proceed. Don't want to actually cook them too far. You make sure that whatever you do, you don't let the garlic get browned. Next stages will be to add some additional flavoring to this. We're going to add, and normally I would let that onion cook a little bit more, but I'm going to proceed here. I've got 2 cups of a sodium reduction, fat reduction chicken stock or chicken broth, whichever one you've got available. And I'm also going to add a cup of white beans. Now these are cooked beans. At this stage you could also add pasta instead, but if you add pasta, I'd probably recommend that you increase the amount of broth or stock that you use. Go ahead and add probably 2 more cups of just water and add some uncooked small pasta, either some small shells, some macaroni, something like that. The white beans, however, add a lot of flavor. They also add a lot of fiber here, so I'm just going to go ahead and use those. I've also got 2 cups of diced canned tomatoes. And I've got 2 tablespoons of fresh oregano and 2 tablespoons of fresh basil. I'm going to bring this to a boil and then reduce that down to a simmer and let that simmer for 10 minutes. If your garden has stopped producing fresh herbs, go ahead and use dried. They will also work fairly well here. It gives you a different flavor, but not a bad flavor. But reduce the amount by at least half, because when you concentrate them down during drying, you also concentrate the oils that give the bulk of the flavor. And so adding the full amount that you would use if you used fresh would be overwhelming. So reduce that down to 1.5 teaspoons, 1 teaspoon. You might actually want to cook it for a little bit and taste it and see if you need to add more before overwhelming everything. So bring this up to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, 10 minutes. Okay, after you've simmered it for 10 minutes, you're ready basically for dinner. I'm going to add about a cup or a cup and a half of frozen spinach. Now, I did thaw it ahead of time. Whether you drain it or not for this type of thing, because it's going in a soup with a lot of liquid anyway, is really how much you feel like doing that. Just stir that in, make sure it gets nice and hot. If you have fresh spinach, you could also use other greens in this too. So if you had kale that you wanted to use or some other green, you could do that. You just might have to extend the cooking time a little bit if it's something that takes a little bit longer. If it's just something like spinach that needs to be wilted down, or if it's something that you froze earlier in the season, you're good to go. And the soup is actually ready to go at this point in time. I'm going to ladle up a nice serving here. This should give you about 4 servings, so it's a generous soup. It's definitely a hearty soup, and it's one that you'll be ready for a nice meal on a nice cool winter or fall afternoon. I'm going to sprinkle it with just about a tablespoon of freshly grated Parmesan cheese and put just a little bit more basil on the top of that for decoration. And then the last thing that you would do if you lived in Italy would be to drizzle it with a little tiny bit of flavorful olive oil. And there you go. A chunk of crusty bread and good company, and you're ready for a wonderful meal. This is Tomato and Sausage Soup for Oklahoma Gardening. This is Barbara Brown.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.